Hi everyone, this is Kasoji. I'm the co-founder of the Star in Me, which is a global career advancement platform for women. I am very pleased to be here today with four amazing women leaders. We are all part of the leadership team of Lean In Hyderabad, and we are here to talk about networking, which is an extremely important aspect of our professional careers. So one by one, I'm going to be asking each of these senior leaders to share their thoughts on why networking is important, how they started networking during their careers, and how it has helped them. So to set the stage, let me talk about my thoughts on networking. After around 19 years of I've realized that networking is non-negotiable if you want to succeed in your professional journeys. Networking, as a lot of people say, is almost like exercise. We know it is important, but we don't pay attention to it. In my case, it is slightly different. I realized that exercise is important before I realized that networking is important. So I used to exercise from a very long time, but it took me many more years to actually realize the importance of networking and start doing it. So while everyone talks about why networking is important to them in their view, I'm going to talk about an offbeat sort of a thought that I have as to why networking is important. To me, networking has always given me an extreme sense of belonging. Usually when I talk in panels and when I give sessions on various topics, I give this example. When we were in school, right, and I'm sure all of you can relate to this, imagine yourself in school as a kid. And if the teacher walked in and said, who did not complete the homework yesterday? Please raise your hands. As you would raise your hand very slowly, the first thing you would do is turn back and see who else has not completed their homework. Because your first thought would be, am I the only one? Or is there anyone else who's going to join me outside the classroom when I'm being punished? So that sense of belonging that we had as kids, the fact that you don't want to be the only one facing a situation, you don't want to be the only one in a particular circumstance, that applies to us as adults also. And to me, that is why networking is important, to know that there are other people, probably similar people or people who are from diverse backgrounds, who are in the same boat as you, who are sharing the same experiences, who have the same motivations and so on, that you can rely upon when you need their help and in turn help them when they need your help. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to our first leader for today, Sucharita. Sucharita, do you want to introduce yourself and then talk about why networking is important from your perspective?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Uma. This was amazing. So I'm Sucharita Singh. I'm Director People Practices with EA. I've been associated with this company for last 15 years. So now coming in terms of why networking is important, personally for me, it's all about connecting and finding something which is common with the person and what makes the conversation interesting. So it's been a very important part of our lives, and it is very important at each stage of our career. However, while talking about me as to what stage of career did I really realize that it is important, I would say that I knew that networking was important, but I really did not put in that time to really spend that time to meet people, attend events. But today at this stage of my career, I feel I should have done it at much earlier stage of my career, because at that time I chose to stay at office and attending my work rather spending times to get to know wonderful people around outside the office. So that is my story about networking and at what stage I started it.
Thanks, Sarita. Let me now invite Pratyusha to share her views on networking.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot, Uma and Sucharita. I think you've laid the ground very well. For me, networking has been like my DNA from the time I was a child. So I got introduced to this with my parents because they had great social networks. But I just thought it was just another way of talking to people, building social networks, being a Rotarian and lines and all of that. But it actually struck me once during the education when I was trying to really see after my 10+2, what do I wanted to do? I actually wanted to do hospital management, finishing school. I actually were looking at different stages where I can go and speak to people and understand what are the different different courses, and really, and second is the confidence it gives you, as well as the opportunities it opens up, right? It opens up to different opportunities to oneself, whether it's in business or in corporate side. I think these are the three things in my mind why networking different milestones, as I said, whether it was in college, whether I was an entrepreneur myself, and at the same time, during my corporate career, it actually opened up many opportunities when I really wanted to take the plunge to do something new. And as I was just citing my career, I lead HR. I'm a senior director HR with Cognizant. And I also work as a joint secretary for the Women Forum SCSC, which is my volunteering job. And I'll talk more about it as to where my networks really began much more in the journey.
Thanks, Pratyusha. And I can completely vouch for the fact that Pratyusha is one of the best networkers I have ever seen. Whenever I needed anything, be it a corporate connect or a dentist or, some help me as a consultant, a lawyer or a CA, she always knows someone, and she has such great relationships with them that they're all just one call away. So thanks, Pratyusha. I think there's a lot we can learn from you. Handing it over to Aparna now. Can you introduce yourself and talk about this?
Sure. Thanks, Uma, Sucharita and Pratyusha. I think you have already set the ground for the whole networking, why it is important. So before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Aparna Pathak. I lead the global diversity and inclusion for Novartis Business Services, which is one of the divisions of Novartis. In this role for not long, around 1 year. So, I think I realized networking is important pretty late, and I think something similar to Sucharita. I used to think that one of the things that when we used to go for leadership training, they used to say that, one of the things that you should do is networking, you should build your network. And I said, why do I need to have a network? I do my job, I'm very good at it, or I will try to be the best in my job. And whatever opportunities will come my way. I mean, I don't need to do anything different, right? And then when leaders, when we are assessing people, and then we realize that, two things being equal, everything being equal between two people. One is that which is the person who is top of the mind recall, right? So that is something that I realized, and kind of started. I'm not say that I'm not as good as Pratyusha or Sucharita. I've just started, a couple of years back when I was doing an extended role from my regular business role, where I was leading the council, for Novartis Hyderabad. And that is when I started interacting with people, understanding what they're doing, because, this is a field that people were very willing to share what they're doing, because it's all about inclusion. And that is how I started building, the network, and starting with the opportunities for collaboration, opportunities to showcase what you're doing, as well as, very rightly said, it is a feeling of belonging that, everybody faces the same problem. And someone has solved it, so why not use that solution? Steal with pride, as we say. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Use the experiences of others, and that is what the networks will help you to do, right? You don't need to be feeling alone and saying that, oh, this problem is very unique to me, and this is no one else has faced this. I can assure you, everybody has gone through the same challenges. And networks do help us with solving the problem faster, and also giving a peace of mind and saying that, you're not alone, and your problem is not unique. So that's my take on networking.
Thanks, Aparna. That is so interesting. And thanks for being so candid about how you realize the importance of networking. Over to Praveena now. Do you want to introduce yourself and talk about this, Praveena?
Thank you, Uma, and very beautifully laid out by all the ladies here. So myself, Praveena Bhimavarapu, with 20 years of corporate IT into financial organizations, worked over 2-3 continents, and then now in India, I'm the Vice President heading the corporate functions technology out of India. And with State Street, which is a Boston-based asset management and custodian bank. Now, coming to the topic here, there are 2-3 things that I want to first lay out. One is, did it come naturally? Answer is no. Had a lot of butterflies in my stomach, and the urge was, okay, how do I address that? So that kind of started the need to look for a word called networking for me, honestly speaking, and nothing else. And what would come out of it, benefits, didn't think about it 10 years back when attending some of these meetings and sessions where I was sent by my organization to just attend. And I used to think how comfortable everybody is. And then slowly this concept of a saying which I heard that, if you want to go faster, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with a group. And then I felt, am I really good with the group setting, and can I make those conversations, make myself comfortable? And the answer was no. So then I explored into, oh, you know what, I need to build that around me. And that's when very small baby steps that I took, which led me to building the smaller circles around me one by one, and leading up to a little bigger forums, or I would say not forum big or small, but a kind of a lot of visibility into how others do that easily, and just building the skill. And later on I realized that it's a power. We are empowered once we are part of a network, because it just doesn't help us on our journey and on that particular day, but it actually, you never know, one small thing can change, and that small thing comes from the networks that we build. So had a lot of opportunities. In fact, the way I met Uma was part of one of those sessions that I attended at ISP, and that one thing led to another. So that way I feel that there's much more power than we realize, but we don't do much about it until somebody actually forces you in. And for me, that force within was my inability to network to begin with, and that insecurities and lack of confidence that put me into that task. So I think, Uma, we will have a lot of conversations coming up in the next sessions, but that's, for me, networking is all about from a definition point of view.
Thanks, Praveena. That was very interesting. Okay, so now we move on to the next aspect that we will discuss. As all of you were speaking, I realized that almost everyone except Pratyusha, who was born networker, mentioned that we had some apprehensions, some reservations that stopped us from networking early on in our careers. So we'll go and talk about, what were some apprehensions that you had that stopped you from networking, and how did you overcome them? So I start off with my own experience. I am an introvert. Given an option, I'll curl up with the book and, just sit and read it for a very long time. It's okay. My husband says I'm probably the happiest person in the lockdown. It doesn't matter to me. I cannot go out. I'm happy staying at home. So, and then, sometimes when I think about this famous quote, and all of you must have come across it, it's by a lady called Regina Brett. And she says, no matter how you feel, get up, dress up, and show up. So it took me a lot of, I had to get over my own reservations and eventually make it a point to turn up to networking events. That was the first step. And once I went to networking events, I had to actually make an effort to go and say hello to people I did not know. Because given my personal proclivities, I would have sat down in one place, heard whatever was going on, and come back home without even saying hello to anyone. So it took a lot of effort on my part. But once I started to do it, I realized that it was so powerful. And, towards the end of this session, we'll actually talk about how networking has helped us in our lives personally. But if all of you could talk about what were some reservations, apprehensions you had, how you overcame them, and how you started networking, that will be very helpful. So Sucharita, over to you first.
Okay. Personally, coming to me as a person, I'm not a very out and out extroverted person. So I take time in terms of getting to know the person, spending time, and then opening up. So that was something which I felt like if I have to go for events, can I really do it? So I always had that self-doubt if I would just go forward confidently, introduce myself and interact with a person, which I was not sure about myself. And that stopped me. That self-doubt, lack of confidence really stopped me, and I would never take the first step. And I do remember that I had like couple of very close friends, and he would say, hey, by the way, you need to just get out of your comfort zone and attend these events. And I would promise, like, okay, I will be there, believe me. But I used to like chicken out at, like, for example, if the event is at 6 o'clock in the evening, I would say, hey, by the way, some meeting has come up, I don't think I can come. So I used to do that. I used to feel like, really, I need to go, it's okay, I'm like really doing well in the office, I'm interacting with my colleagues, I'm in my comfort zone. So that was something like a feeling of self-doubt, which was always there on back of my mind. That is something which stopped me. However, over a period of time, I realized that I really need to get out of my comfort zone, and I started, and I enjoyed doing it. Once I was in a situation, I would confidently speak to anybody new and have those conversations. And I think I just got better. I'm still learning how to get better. I wouldn't say that I'm perfect right now, but I would say that I'm just trying to get over my inhibitions by being participative, taking out time, investing in really being there as and when the event happens. Maybe I might not be able to go for all 10 events, but maybe at least making an attempt to go for at least 2 or 3 and get out of the comfort zone. That is how I'm dealing with myself personally.
Thanks, Sucharita. That is very helpful. Over to Pratyusha. Pratyusha, going by what you said and having known you, I don't think you would have had many apprehensions about networking, but maybe
I think that's a myth.
Can you give us some tips on how you typically network? How is it that you know so many people and know them not just from number level, but actually know them in terms of forming relationships and moving into a comfort zone? So do share some tips from your experience.
Absolutely. I'll share some tips, and also I do have some apprehensions, right? I would share how a born networker also. For me, as you were talking, I was just thinking of this, that networking is something like your nutrition and fitness plans, right? It's very tough to do it, but you don't make it your top priority. So, whenever I get to a diet plan, I really go, wow. And, I just don't make it my priority. For me, networking is like that. So whenever I had all these social skills and doing it, but I never made it my priority. But then I realized over a period of time, when I got into the corporate world, my biggest apprehension was the controversial topics. The second apprehension is those social issues. And when people start talking about the political issues, I really never liked them, right? That's something, how do I deal with it? I think I do it. I either give my counter interactive view, or I just get out of that opportunity and I say, this is not what I want to do. I think it's important to choose your networks. So to your point, Uma, I think very important is choose your networks, choose what you want to get exposed to, and you can't just go all out to be as a part of all the networks, right? So I had very clearly 3-4 things. I had a very entrepreneur mindset. I love coming up with new ideas. So I'm a part of a lot of the business forums and business groups. I may not be an entrepreneur, but I know one fine day that is living in me, right? I love ideating and start building on new things. So I'm a part of those groups. I really want to do a lot of things around the advancement of women, helping them build a career, mentor, guide. So I'm part of those groups and I really endorse each of them. And I'm part of all of the women's safety or the women empowerment, enabling women, right? And finally, it is for me, relationships matter a lot. So the networks which help me build long-term relationships, they say, right? You don't count your age with the, numbers, but count with the relationships and the friends you have. And be it men or women, I have networks across. So for me, relationships matter a lot. So that's how I've been able to build my networks consciously and made it a priority finally in different milestones of my life.
Thanks, Pratyusha. That's a very refreshing perspective. Thank you for sharing those tips. Over to you, Aparna. What were your apprehensions and how did you overcome them and start networking?
So See, I'm not an introvert, so I'm an extrovert. So for me, it's easy to go up to people and talk. But my apprehension, or rather my inhibition, was more in terms of where do we find people outside the office, right? So one was that. So at the same time, there was this thing of having a lot of excuses that why you can't go. I have a lot of work pressure. I can't really make the time. And after a point in time, when you start analyzing your responses, you realize that these are all excuses that you are giving, right? So you're only fooling yourself and nobody else. If you really want to do something, you will make time, right? So it is. I believe that truly. So I realized that it is important to know people outside of your office and even within office, because it is we don't realize that it's we have big offices, right? So you have quite a lot of people and you don't know all of them, right? So for me also, one of the apprehension was that will people like me and want to continue to have relationship with me, right? So that is one of the things that you would have. Many people might have, some people may not have as well. But I used to feel that if I go and talk to some people, would they find me interesting enough to keep talking to me, or should I have to keep making that effort? So that was one of the key apprehensions that I had. Then, as you grow in confidence and as you grow in confidence about your ability and the value that you bring, after a point in time, you say that, I'm what I am. People, if they, want to continue to have that relationship, or if I want to have that relationship with them as well, because many a times for me, it used to be it was very important that I like that person with whom I'm interacting. But over a point in time, I realized that, first of all, you will not know everybody so well that, you will like each and every aspect of that person. And it's okay to like only certain parts of it. And it's also okay to not like everything about it, but, see it may be a very professional interaction as well. So you have to understand that not all the relationship will be personal. They will also be very professional, and you need not always, be in love with that person or really like that person to be part of a network. So these are some of the learnings that I've had as I, kind of started networking and grew over the apprehension of people liking me beyond, that interaction that we have, right? So that was important to me.
Thanks, Aparna. Two very great takeaways from there. The first thing that you mentioned, how do we find the network outside of our office? I mean, how do you even make connects? And I think Lean In Hyderabad is one channel that's going to help us going forward to bring a more diverse network into our lives. The second thing you mentioned is about being authentic. You are who you are, and that is how you should present yourself to the world also. And it does not matter how people react to you. You just make friends and make new connects. So amazing points there. Thank you. Moving on to Praveena, would you share a couple of your thoughts on this?
Sure. In fact, while everybody was speaking, I remembered one word, which is we speak a lot in our corporate side, called unconscious bias. And that unconscious bias was there with me as well when we talked about networking. That the bias is, this is for certain people, should have the content, should have the skill, capability, and then you start networking. So for me, that was the biggest inhibition, that I did not have all of that. Though personally, I like to be on the stage, extrovert, not totally introvert, but yeah, like you, might given a chance, I'd like to curl up in the bed and with a nice book. But then again, the urge would come back to be, back on the dice. So not knowing how to do it was the biggest inhibition, though I knew the importance of it. And then tied with the unconscious bias that I had about, knowing the skill and the content. And to your point about being authentic, right? That means know your stuff. And to build that, your stuff or the content, it needs a lot of time, and you need to invest your energies. You need to sometimes it's self-made, meaning you push yourself, and somebody else has to push you in. And that should be the case. For me, that happened the later. Some part was my initiation, but then throughout my career, I had wonderful coaches, mentors, and managers who really pushed me into it with no other way to look around, right, for help. So either you swim or sink, and that helped me to get started. And once I got started, I felt, okay, you know what, I can do this, or yeah, I'm enjoying it. And if I'm not enjoying it, I was later, the skill that kind of developed was, it's okay to not enjoy it and say no to it. And to Pratyusha's point, select where you want to spend your energies, the topics that are, you're closely close to your heart. That's something that you can continue. So my piece of advice is, everybody should experiment. I don't think, we have that mindset. I think we go by certain biases about certain groups, and then I start. So it's a lot about the way it gets marketed, or it's a lot about how one doesn't talk about their work. Even these networking is also one of them, right? There'll be very good groups that you would want to be part of, because just the topics are so enriching, but we don't know about them. So awareness, know your content, and the unconscious bias, these three things are very, very important. And the way I entered into all these things were some bit of my push, but majority was somebody really pulled me into their groups, or pushed me there and said, you just have to do it. So there will be days when we feel like doing it naturally, and there will be days when it's just, we have to prepare for it. So it's a combination. I don't think, I'm cut for that, but as we are growing as part of this, I hope, some bit of the natural instincts will be more visible than the preparatory ones. But yeah, that's something that comes only with experience and exposure. So that's my take on that, Uma.
Thanks, Praveena. Again, amazing insights there for all of us to take away. So now let's move on to the last point of our discussion, which is real life examples of how networking helped us. So I'll start off with a couple of examples. In fact, I'll start off with all the women here as to how I met them and how it was not, again, something natural that came to me. So Pratyusha and I knew each other for about 15 years. We worked at the same company, GE Capital, many, many years ago. And that's how I got to know her. But then we lost touch and eventually reconnected when we joined Cognizant. So still, it was an old relationship that I had to be rekindled. I met Praveena and Sucharita when at ISP I had gone to speak about my venture, The Star in Me, and that's how I met both of them. And we stayed in touch. And Aparna, incidentally, Aparna and I live in the same gated community, and another common friend introduced us. So that is how we met. Again, moving out of our comfort zone and meeting someone new. And I must mention that it is so important to form these relationships, right? Because when I took over as the Lean In Hyderabad regional leader a couple of months ago, I knew that we had to form a leadership team. And when I started looking at who should I ask, these were the first 4 names that came to mind. And luckily for all of us, everyone agreed. So it's amazing that all of you are here today. And I think that's a result of the networking I did. Another example is, like I said, right, I'd walk into conferences mostly because out of pressure, not that I really want to go in. And then at least when you're with a corporate, you will go with a team, right? So you already have a team of 5 people from the same company. And I remember Pratyusha and I going together while we were in Cognizant. So that is easier because then you have your own friend circle, you go and interact and so on. But then as an entrepreneur, when you walk into some of these conferences, you're alone. I mean, you don't have a big team, so there's no one going with you. Initially, in fact, one of the first NASCOM or CII conferences that I attended, I walked into the room and then there was this first table where there was a seat vacant. I went and sat there because I didn't want to go and sit in the rest of the room. So then I sat down there and there were a couple of people who were talking to themselves. They must be from the same firm. Now I went totally out of my comfort zone to say hello to them, introduce myself, tell them what I'm doing, and started talking. And I'm so glad I did that because, those people turned out to be from a technology multinational, and they were amongst our first three clients for the Star and Me. So, sometimes you never know where your next lead, next client comes from. So networking is so very important. Another thing that I do is I read quite a lot. I read over like 150 books a year. And sometimes when I really like a book, right, I tend to leave a review. Either I write an entire blog or I at least leave a review on Twitter or LinkedIn. I never used to do this earlier, but then I started to tag the authors and say that, I loved your book, never expecting them to respond. But surprisingly, so many of them actually respond to you, and some of them start following you back, and you can reach out to them. So sometimes you think those real celebrities, famous people will not respond, but that's not the case. Everyone wants to hear that they're doing a good job, that they're adding value, right? So it's so important to network beyond your country and so on. And in fact, that's why through the Star and Me, whenever we have some of our networking events, we have women joining from across 10, 15 odd countries. And when we talk about things like this, and you have a woman from Australia, somebody from Austria, someone from Canada saying, I felt through I went through the exact same situation. It then tells you that women across are very similar. So that sense of belonging comes automatically. So these are a couple of my examples on how networking has helped me. Over to you, Sucharita. Can you talk about a few things that you gained through networking?
Yeah, thanks, Uma. I think I completely agree with you, and you definitely gave a good example. I think I met Uma during the ISB networking event, and because of that, this forum itself right now meeting more like additional three wonderful ladies, and today we are talking about it. Yes, it is where I met Uma, and at that time we instantly connected. And it really helped me because one is there were common interests and passions that we were like really interested in, and we discussed it over that event. And after a point, we stayed in touch, and there were a lot of initiatives around diversity, inclusion, and equality in our organization. And Uma was the first person that I reached out to in terms of getting her thoughts and perspectives and how I can, implement few things. And that is where, she really helped me. And the second person I would say is like, I see Uma as like quite an inspiration for myself. I think it's because of her today that I'm coming out of my comfort zone and really taking this opportunity of interacting with everybody. I don't think I would have imagined myself really going on a forum, talking so confidently. I think it's somewhere about the whole connect that I made with her, and the examples that she shared and her experiences and the connections I've made all along has really helped me. So that is my story in terms of this particular area.
Thank you so much, Sucharita. In fact, we usually say that some of the best friends you make are the friends you make while you're in school and college, because everyone is so innocent and untarnished, and those friendships are most valuable. I must mention Sucharita is one such friend I made at such a point in my life when you don't really make good friends. So lovely knowing you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pratyusha, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I think there were a couple of things, right? In the last 25 years of my corporate career, and I did a stint of entrepreneurship, as I mentioned earlier. Networking was very, very, for me personally, as I said, I was a part of the HR groups 10 years back. So I moved from a business stream to a HR stream 10 years back. And I want to share this incident, right? For me, I started taking up certifications, started learning and understanding the networks within the company itself. But I realized that there's so many networks outside. And when I started talking to a couple of people in NASCOM and CI, and I didn't go out in spite of me being a born networker or wanted to do, I didn't know whether I can go, because again, that's an apprehension which I turned it around. And so I first went and spoke, and I was trying to understand what are the groups available, how do I really understand. For me, it was I wanted an exposure to gain knowledge, right? So that was the point of time where I wanted to network. And But then I had my apprehension. I said, no, it's okay. You can gain knowledge through a book. You can gain knowledge by talking to your peers. You can gain knowledge to the others. You don't need to go all out. And I happened to meet a friend of mine, and I said, see, I think now I've come to a certain stage. Why don't you introduce me to somebody to be a part of a committee? He said, what do you mean committee? You should take up a very high level position like a council lead or whatever. And that's when he introduced me, right, to SCSC. And that was my first eye opener to understand the industry. I met almost about 20 people who were sitting around the SCSC table, who were from NASCOM, CII, different councils. And I think, Praveena, you touched upon authenticity. When somebody really thinks you're authentic, you're credible, you really want to make a difference, they reach out to you. It's not who you know, it is who knows you, right? And when people started to getting to know me, right, with whatever I was doing, I saw myself in a span of 3 years, be it in any of these forums, it came out very free and openly to be able to talk, discuss, and build my networks. So that was like an amazing journey for me. And I really applaud Uma and Mahua, right, and the star in me. I've seen them transforming. And I won't say Mahua. Mahua is more like me. We both talk, who are the star in me founders. But Uma was like a transformation in front of my eyes, what she was and what she is now. I think she's become born networker. She's learned the skill like the way she exercises in the gym. So she's become a born networker now, not me. And I reach out to her now more than I reach out to my contacts. So I think it's more a skill, and anybody can do it. It is something which you just need to find what you want. Do you want the exposure? Do you want the knowledge? Do you want to make connects? It's just not, don't make it a marketing deal. I would tell all of my friends, right? It's not a marketing. Just don't be in social media groups because you have to be there and keep fishing out for things. But to gain something and also to give back something.
Yeah, that's an amazing point, Pratyusha, and one that all of us must remember. Networking is more about giving than it is about taking. So as soon as we network with people, think of ways you can help them instead of thinking from our perspective and wondering how we can gain from that relationship. So amazing points. Thank you. Aparna, do you want to go next and share some personal experiences?
Yeah, sure. So I would, first of all, I would make a disclaimer that, I'm still learning the ropes on networking. So I think it's going to be a journey for me. It's something that I've started in a couple of years back, as I mentioned. So it started off with, me taking up this council role and doing it. And obviously you were there for around 1.5 years or so. That role is there. And you want to make an impact, right? So, and we said that, what else we have done? And we said that we don't have any connect with outside. So how do you reach out to people, right? So that was something that I didn't know how to start off with. So I said that, the best way would be to reach out to an organization which can help us to connect with other people, right? So we said we will host a DNI conference along with NASCOM. So we did that, and that is where, again, so that is where we were, kind of sponsoring an event, and we were closely involved in the planning and everything. So that is where I met a lot of other people, because they created a team which is going to work on getting the whole thing in place. So that is how I got to know more people. And then, from there, when the people came to conferences, talk to them and learn some more, like, Uma, you said that, you understand what people are doing and so on and so forth. And that is how, the connections were made, and it created a lot of impact in terms of having, giving a lot of visibility to what is happening outside, and what is it that we can bring to our organization, as well as, giving visibility to the organization on what we are doing. So this is something that, I kind of benefited in terms of the knowledge that Pratyusha was saying, that, very curious about what else is happening in this particular field. And that also brought me into prominence within our organization. So when this role came up, which is a global role for a division head of DNI, my name was proposed. It's not that I got it, but it was like, being recommended, and there was a lot of interviews, etc., which was there, because that's a process that is being followed. But, it kind of brought an edge because, you know, someone was recommending this name who is kind of considered good. So, maybe I had a bit of an edge over the other candidates. But, you know, having talked to people, being articulate about what D&I is all about, what will be the difference that I will be bringing, really did help me with that interview. So I was able to be very articulate, say what I wanted to do, change more of, what is the support that I need, and so on and so forth. So that, I think, I would say that to a great extent, this kind of helped me give the opportunity, you know, made this opportunity available to me. If I had not done that, maybe I would have been, you know, I mean, I did a good job and okay, fine. But this really helped me to bring me into limelight for me to be recommended for a particular role. So this is a real life example that I can talk to you about from in the immediate, you know, near term time period. So this is something that I also learned. And so whenever people reach out to me on LinkedIn and come up with something, you know, do you have a role in your organization, others, I make it a point to respond back to them, because, you know, it is, as Pratyusha was mentioning, it's also about giving. If you always respond and you be your authentic self and say, you will always not have a right answer or the answer that they're looking for. But it's okay to be honest and say that, you know, I really cannot help you over here, because you're responding back to them and not making it that, you know, because I can't give a positive answer, I will not respond. Because that used to be a case with me some time back, because if I didn't have a positive answer to give, I would really be very hesitant to go back and say that, you know, currently there's nothing, or yes, I have spoken, or whatever be the you know, incident or actions that would be there. So that's from my side.
Thanks, Aparna. In fact, that was an extremely inspiring story about how networking actually helped you in your professional career. I'm sure a lot of lessons for all of us to take away from there. Thank you. Praveena, over to you.
So in fact, the curiosity which Aparna you mentioned was primarily the reason that you know, I got into some of those initial journeys into networking. So only two things I would say, right? One, internal, and as you were talking about how it transformed internally from a career standpoint, right? Yes, that is one of the, you know, benefits that when I had, where I had multiple, you know, role changes, got to know a lot of different people through these different role changes. So that brought out the aspect of diversity. It's not just the inclusion, but the diversity of thoughts, how to work with multiple people, made me more feel comfortable. And that content and the, you know, your point of view, you know, expressing that made much more simpler. So as a result of that, outside of work, you know, the way I got introduced to the other aspects of our corporate world is, you know, attending these sessions. I think this is a catch-22. I want to attend, but I do not have time. But if you don't attend, you do not know how to create time and how to get better at creating time. So the first few sessions were very difficult, where I used to attend all, you know, every year, whether it's, you know, NASCOM or Gartner or any of these sessions, go there and get introduced to at least, you know, 10 people in the 4-day span, and go and sit in on a table where you do not know a lot of people. And even if I have to go alone, I would still do it. I did not want to go in a herd and a group and then, you know, feel just comfortable attending. So that was the first step. So that the way it transformed me is, you know, one of the events where I attended with CII, and after which there was a voluntary sign-in sheet which was kept at the entrance, and I filled my details, and guess what? I got a call to be part of the CII Telangana chapter for their digital transformation and IT. And I was pleasantly surprised, you know, how did I even get, how did I, get into that circle? But, I never asked, how did I reach there and all. But I was well prepared. I looked forward to it, had showed my enthusiasm. And to everybody's point, right, being authentic and give back. So I think that was one of the examples that I can say that, that's how the networking outside started. And then HICIA or SCSC, I read a lot about it. And then through the ISB Connect, and ISB was a training program for some of our women leaders at State Street. And that was only one evening where I met Uma, right? So I still believe, I think Uma said, the small thing, the one small thing that you did not count on may have turned, the future. So this is one of the examples that I still tell that, that one thing led to something like this, which is a beautiful thing, right? So don't go with the goal in mind, just let it happen. Take one small thing at a time, and it will, I don't want to measure it, whether it is good or bad. Everything is an experience. But as long as you're willing to take that next step, and for me, the next step was saying yes to Uma. Though I had some apprehensions on how do I create time for this. I think we all did not talk about the time factor, but trust me, we will find time. Women are very, very creative in doing that. If we can do that for the rest of the family and for corporate world that we belong to, I'm pretty sure we can do that for us. So that's the confidence I have. So with that, over to you, Uma.
Thanks, Praveena. In fact, that was the perfect end to this discussion. The point you made about making networking a priority in our minds and just go with the flow. You never know what can lead to what else. So amazing points from all of you today. Thank you so much for your inputs, and we'll keep interacting on our group. Our next Lean In Hyderabad event is on 22nd August. So see you all there. Thank you so much.